Hey guys, I'm Hannah, I'm a physiotherapist, and we're going to be going through a bit of a runner's recovery today. So all that you really need, we have a trigger ball, we have a roller, and we have a couple bands. And what we're going to be going through is working on the muscles and joints that runners use a lot. You rely on these muscles all the time. So we're going to go from our feet, we're going to do calves, quads, and hips, and then if we have a little bit extra time, we'll go into like lower back. But this is where we're going to start. So let's start with our feet, and we're going to get the trigger ball. And we're going to start with going into the muscles of our bottom of our feet. So that's our plantar fascia, and then we have a lot of little muscles that are what I call our foot intrinsics. So those are the ones that are just within our foot. And then we have some muscles that actually go up the calf and then they attach down into our foot. And so those ones work a lot with creating that arch and that stiffness for when you're running. So what we're looking for with the bottom of our foot, I don't just want you to kind of roll it around. Put as much weight as you need on the other leg, because it shouldn't be grimacing pain. It should just be tight or a little bit uncomfortable. And you're going to start from kind of like that center part of right underneath your heel, and then we're going to roll towards the big toe, back to that center part of the heel, kind of coming towards the two middle toes here, back to that heel, and then to the outside, more towards kind of like that pinky toe area. So you might notice that some areas are tighter than others, but I want you to do that a few times here on just one foot. And again, you're putting pressure that is maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not pain. So what we're doing with trigger ball release isn't releasing fascia or muscles or knots. We're really just working on the sensitivity of an area. So we'll do one more from the heel to the big toe, and then we're going to switch feet here. So now the ball's on the other foot. We're going to start again at that heel, and then rolling towards that big toe, as much weight as you need on this other standing leg, so you're not stepping and putting all your weight down through the ball. Focus kind of on that inner arch, then back towards kind of those middle toes, back towards the heel, and then that outer foot, kind of towards that pinky toe there. And so just go through that a few times, kind of slow, focusing on what you can feel. Again, it might get a little bit spicy for some people, especially on that inner arch, coming towards that big toe. A lot of work goes in through there when we're running. So just a little bit longer on this foot here. Middle toes, back to the heel, and then that outer foot, and back to the heel. So like I said, we're just working on decreasing some of that sensitivity. You might feel like a sensation of looseness, but we didn't necessarily like release fascia or release the muscles. So next that we're going to pair with that, so now that we kind of got into the fascia and the muscles there, we're now going to add a little bit of a stretch through that big toe. And so what happens a lot when we're in like a lunge position, or we're going to go kind of like push off, we need a little bit of that range of that big toe. So you can see as we're going to go push off, we are bending through the big toe. If you don't have a lot of that range, a lot of times the foot will kind of press out so you don't have to bend as much, or you'll actually have lift off sooner. So we just want to mobilize a little bit in through there. And so we're going to go kneeling down, and we're going to come back onto this foot here. And then you're just going to kneel as far forward. If you can get that knee down to the ground, perfect. If not, then you just go as far as you can, putting that weight through that big toe. And so what I want to focus on is that my toes are spread here. Weight is in through this bending leg, and we're just leaning. And to then lean back, I want you to try and push your big toe down as you lean back. And then just that shift weight forward, pushing down to the big toe and lean back. A little bit forward, pushing down, leaning back. And so you should feel this in the joint. If it's painful, I would ease up, maybe even stand up and just do it standing so that you have more, less body weight down through it, you have more control. But we're going to do 3 more here. Pushing down. 2. And 1. So you should feel a little bit of work in through that arch there and a little bit into your ankle joint. And let's switch sides. So this foot goes behind, bending down, holding onto a wall and onto the ground for support here. Toes are spread. And then you're going to lean forward and back. Forward, back. forwards as far as comfortable. Push your big toe down, coming back. Push, 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 almost like you're pushing yourself away from the ground. And then shift forward, pushing back. 3 more here. So this is a lot of joint range of motion for the toe. You don't need this much for running. And so if you don't have it, you don't need to work up to this point. And like I said, you can basically just do it in a standing position and still just try and work on what range you do have before it gets painful. We're not trying to push into pain here. So that's working in through plantar fascia, range of motion of the big toe, foot down here. Next, we're gonna go to our calf. So we have a few different calf muscles. So we have our big gastroc muscles that you can usually see on someone. Those are like the superficial. We have one that's a little bit deeper, the soleus, and we have another plantaris, and that goes down into our Achilles tendon. So what we're gonna do with the trigger ball first is we're gonna find that outside calf muscle. Trigger ball goes underneath. So your leg is gonna be angled a little bit out to the side. You can use your other leg on top for support if you need. You're gonna roll just a little bit and see if you can find one of those sticky spots. You'll know when you find it. And then here, you're just going to point and bend the ankle. And so we're gonna do a little bit on that outside calf of this first leg. It's gonna be a bit sticky. If it starts to feel a little bit better, you can kind of roll around again and find another spot. And then we'll go again. Pointing, bending of the ankle. And then let's go to that middle, so that medial gastroc. So now the ball comes inwards and your leg might rotate in a little bit. So now your foot's coming inwards. So then you can use your top leg for a bit more pressure. And then once you find that sweet spot, a little bit of that point and that bending of the ankle there. And so all we're doing with the ankle is we're basically just like moving the calf at the same time while you have a bit of pressure. And same thing as we were talking about with the foot, we're just getting a little bit of desensitizing some of those tight spots in there. So you're not necessarily getting rid of these knots, it's just that they do have a bit more of that sensitivity and we're just trying to do some calming of that down. So now let's go to the other side here. So let's start on the outside of our other leg. Ball goes on the outside, foot is angled out. Top leg on top for a bit of pressure. And then find that spot. And then point and bend. Couple more here. Point, bend, find another spot. Ooh, that's the tight one. If you go too far on the outside, you'll actually get onto your perineum muscles. So those are quite far on the outside. So you still want to try and stay in your calf. And then let's roll to the medial or that middle side. Foot angles in, a bit more pressure with this foot on top. Find a sticky spot, point, bend. Three more here, find another spot, maybe a little bit lower down. Last one, point, bend. Nice, so that's getting into the calf muscle. And then what we want to go from here is a little bit of that stretch and mobilization. So there's a lot of ways that you can stretch the calf. One of the ones that I like is being in that downward dog, just because you can get a little bit of pressure through your hands, but then you can also do a little bit of that cycling through the legs. So you can kind of go one after the other and like to kind of spread toes, anchor them on the ground here. And then as you're basically stretching that one leg, so knee goes straight, the other knee bends, comes forward, weight basically comes off, and then swap. Really try and get that heel down to the ground. Switch. And you're active through your arms here, so you're pushing your body away from the ground, so we get a little bit of shoulder activation here. Spread those toes, get the heel to the ground, really feel that calf stretch. We'll do 5 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. So now we've got that stretch in. Next, we're gonna move up to our quads. So we can use a trigger ball here, but you can also use a roller, and it's gonna get a bit spicy. So we're gonna use the ball and we're gonna put it onto our quad here, and we're gonna be on our stomachs. And so this might be too pinpoint for some people, and in that case you can use a roller. So what we're gonna do here is find one of those spots, and then we're gonna go through that knee range of motion. And then we're gonna move that to the outside of the quad a little bit. Same thing. Flex and extend the knee here. You gotta be a bit active through your shoulders, just because we're in that plank position. A little bit of sneaky core and shoulder work. You can rotate your leg a little more and really get on that outside. I think you'll feel these ones. You can scooch down, go higher on the quad. Inwards a little bit. Quad means 4, so we have 4 different quad muscles in our thigh. We can't get to the 4th one, it's a deeper between the top 3, but you can move around and get all of those good juicy spots throughout this quad here. More, find those good spots. One more on the outside. And then let's switch sides here. So switch that over. Find some of those spots. And then bending, extending through the knee. Moving up a little bit, still on kind of like that inner middle part of the quad here. Then we'll rotate a little bit to the outside, usually a little bit tighter. So you might need a bit less pressure, so you might have to put the rest of your body weight down on the ground here. That's tighter on this side for me, so you can probably notice one side versus the other for you. Yeah, definitely tight. Then moving back just to the bowl, rolls up the quad a little bit on the outside here still. All right, couple more spots in the squat here. So go back to the ones that were the spiciest and then dig back in. Couple more movements here. All right. So now we got, again, a little bit of that sensation decrease, so it's just not so, feeling like it's so tight. So we'll put the ball to the side for a second, and now we're gonna do a bit of a stretch and a bit of an activation. So from here, what we want to do is grab just like that loose band, so one of the long ones. We're gonna go onto our stomachs. You're gonna loop the band just around the leg here and pulling it over with your shoulder. So first thing, you can see that my leg's quite bent, and you can probably see that there's a big arch in my back. So we want to try and tuck our tailbone under, just so we don't arch so much. A little bit of that tuck, and then you're gonna kick into the band, and we're gonna hold. So this one's actually a little bit more work than a stretch. You can see that there's a little bit of that shakiness happening in through my leg as I'm trying to hold it. We'll hold for another 3, 2, 1, and relax into that stretch. Let everything go. If you want a little bit less, you can put the long edge of the band here. Now you got a little bit more control. So again, we're pulling into that stretch right now, so we got a little bit of that quad stretch. Tuck tailbone, so squeeze glute, and then kick into the band. Keep that tuck, and we're gonna hold. So, feels like a little bit of work. So what we're doing is called an isometric, just in a bit of that knee flexed position. Really try and keep that glute squeezed, so you're not arching too much through your back. Hold for another 3, 2, 1, and relax there. Whew. And we'll let it kind of hang out. You can pull into a bit more of a stretch if you need, if you can feel that. If you can't, keep that glute squeezed, and you should be able to still feel a bit of that quad. And then we'll do one more push. So glute squeezed, and then push, holding that. Keep that glute squeezed. Try and keep that push into the band. You don't need to go very far. We're just holding it again in that same position, in that isometric. For another 3, 2, 1. And relax that leg there. Get this band off. We'll swap sides. So hooking the band onto the foot. Pointing the ankle. Band comes over the shoulder. And so again, here, we're first pulling into a bit of that quad stretch. So it kind of depends again on how tight you feel. This one's tighter for me, so even as I just pull, I can feel it a bit more in my leg. As soon as I squeeze my glute, I can definitely feel it more in the whole quad, especially around the knee. So here we're gonna pull to what's comfortable, squeeze that glute, and then we're gonna kick, and we're just gonna hold. For 3, 2, 1, and then relax that kick. You can pull into a bit of a stretch. Depends how your knee feels. Do a little glute squeeze, kind of relax. A little glute squeeze, relax. You can kind of feel where the stretch is. And then pulling into that stretch here. Tuck the tailbone, squeeze the glute, and then kick and hold. Three, 2, 1. Pulling back into a bit of a stretch. Kind of relax. Shake it out a little bit. Little glute squeezes. You can kind of see where you can feel it. And then we're gonna do one more. So pulling over, good squeeze, kick, hold. Three, two, one. All right,